All right, Mayor, I think I'm going to start with the big item from the 14th was plans for construction of the new Marshfield Utilities Building project. That was, I guess, the highlight of the Tuesday council meeting. Tell us about it. What'd you hear? What'd you see? And what's the timeline for what looks to be a pretty sizable project on the south side?
Yeah, it's a very sizable project, and the timeline is a couple of years. They're looking to do some, get common council. They've got to get their commission approval and whatnot. But it's to build a substantially larger building than they're in right now. If you go down to the utility, they are in the video that they did. Nick did a great video, a couple of good videos, but it shows how squeezed they are right now. They just don't have enough room. And so it's really time to get something bigger. You know, equipment is so much bigger and broader than it was. So the new building would give adequate area for office space, safety. I guess they've had some issues with folks going in. Oddly enough, we found out that just over 3,000 people a month actually go in to pay their bill. It's interesting because they do online. You know, people still send checks online and every now, but there are some people that just like to go and pay that bill, which is very interesting. So they're looking at making that more accessible. But primarily, they need more room for all of the trucks, the bigger trucks, than they were 50 years ago when this building was put together. And when you looked at the equipment room, everything is just smashed up. So they really do need more space. And so now they're looking at building this new building. I believe it's going to be about $17 million.
17.5.
And I believe it's going to be about 82,000 square feet. And it's going to be in the same spot because they looked at, you know, they did a study to see should they go somewhere else. And it ends up that to move all those electrical lines and sewer lines and whatnot, water lines, it would be 3 times the amount of the project to do that. So realistically, staying put with where they are it looks to be the best option. So it looks like a beautiful building. One thing that I was very pleased about is, yes, this is an expensive project and everything. The rate increase will be minimal, and they were very cautious about that. Part of this is their bonding that's coming up, and with interest rates being so low right now, it is kind of a crucial time to do something because even when they go to renew their bonds, they're going to get far better rates. So the program that they did is very good. Now they'll be coming back to, I believe on the 24th or so, they're having a commission meeting to get approval from the utility commission. And then it will come back up, and then Nick will come back to the council meeting at the end of the month to give an update on if that was approved. And then look to come back to the council meeting in the first meeting of February for approval. So there's a lot of work left to do, but you can go to, I believe it's on the city website, the Marshfield utility website, so you can see the whole presentation.
Yeah.
If you went and you looked at the common council presentation, it was totally about 40 minutes long. And one thing I will say is it was in depth.
It was.
I mean, they didn't rush through anything. It was very in depth to show the need that's there, how very cost conscious they are, and the projected timeline.
Yeah, they were very deliberate. You know, they didn't assume that the council was going to be 100% supportive. I mean, not that they had reason to believe they weren't, but they were very, as Bob said, deliberate in terms of walking through where have they been, where are they now, what are the needs, what are the opportunities. You know, they've wanted for a long time. I heard this when I came here 9 years ago, that they were hoping to someday consolidate all their operations on one site. They weren't sure at that time if it would be the current site or not, but this is an exciting thing for them. The only issue that really involves the city per se is that they need our approval from a bonding perspective because they're under our umbrella. But one of the council members asked a good question: was this going to affect our bond rating in some way? And the answer is no. It doesn't affect our borrowing. It's not really part of the city's geo debt. It's more of a revenue bond through the utility. But there's only so much that a city can borrow in 1 year, and then you go through what's called a bank qualification. Anytime we borrow more than $10 million in 1 year, that could affect in terms of the number of bidders we get and the interest rates we get, because it's flagged. It's flagged for potential bondholders that this community has borrowed more than $10 million. And it's hard to say, is it a few percentage, basis points, or what is it? We really don't know. It's believed it's not a lot, but that's going to happen no matter what year they do this. So even if we pushed it out and said, don't do this till 2023, don't do this till 2024, whatever year they do this project, they're under our overall umbrella, so we're going to go through the 10 million right off the bat. So that's not surprising, and it's not a big thing. So I don't know why we wouldn't be supportive. I was pleased with how they made the case for the need for the improvement on Tuesday night. And by the way, back to the timetable there, they are planning, if all goes well, to begin the project in spring of 2021 and to be completed by fall of 2022. It'd be about an 18-month timeline for constructing this facility.
And, okay, so Mayor, you have to be pleased too, because I know you're a big supporter of the Aquatic Center project. It sounds like those two found a way, they're next door neighbors, the utility and the current HEFCO pool. It sounds like they have found a way to coexist on that piece of property.
Found a way to coexist, and it was interesting because the utility, they've been talking about this for 8 years, and they were kind of waiting along, and the council was kind of waiting for them too. Are they going to stay or whatever, because it really affected the pool. And then finally the council members said, look, let's just move forward with the pool, and whatever the utility does, they do. If they stay, great. If they move to a different place, that's fine too. And literally within a month or two right after, they made the decision to stay there. And they're going to make sure that the building that faces the pool is aesthetically pleasing. They're putting up a wall there. So I think overall it's worked out. It worked out on its own to be a win-win situation.
Yeah, they've tried really hard to minimize the feeling of encroachment, and really they were the ones most conscious of it. They were more conscious than we were. They really didn't want to build a new facility and someone says, well, look, you're right on top of us and you're overlooking the pool, that's uncomfortable or whatever. They've tried to provide the best buffer they can and to try and do the least encroachment possible. They really want there to be as much separation as possible between the Aquatic Center and their building, and I think they've done a pretty decent job of it.
And they really did a really good job of justifying the expansion. When you look at in there, there's 2 stories, but there's no elevator. They're very cramped from an office space point of view. When they showed where there's one room that's kind of a break room, conference room, changing room, all combined.
Yeah.
They are they've really outgrown it. They outgrew this years ago. And so this is much needed.
Anything else on the utility presentation?
I guess I would just say that I expect the council to be supportive when they come back in February. I didn't hear anything to the contrary during or after the meeting, Mike, that would suggest otherwise. I think some people maybe were struck initially by the number. 17.5 million is a large figure, but I think when they realized what's involved, what they're getting for it, and how much thought and really planning has gone into it, they felt better about it, and I think realistically comfortable given the high price tag.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the other thing not to get lost in all of this is the fact that the users will pay for this thing, right? Eventually through a rate increase. I know they talked about that during a presentation to the council, where the fact that this will impact your electric bill because the users are the ones to pay for this thing, right?
Absolutely. Any kind of thing like this, it's always the users that pay for it in one form or another. The thing is, what would the cost be not to do it when you start looking at unsafe working conditions, and this is going to increase efficiencies and everything else. Now, none of that is going to matter to the consumer that gets their water bill, and instead of being $110 or $110 goes up to $114, maybe $115. That's not really going to matter to them at that time, but realistically, this is something that really needs to be done. An argument could be made, does it need to go this big? I do know that they are, and realistically, if you would see the video, which I can't stress enough, go to the website to see it, to see how they are being very cost conscious about it, but also they're expanding with expansion in mind, even solar energy expansion. So they're really, I believe that they've really looked at this as thoroughly as you possibly can. Nick, the general manager there, and Mike Ebro, the president of the commission, these guys are, I mean, the brain power between them is amazing, and they've been very, very thorough.
Okay. Was there a discussion on, well, the agenda says regulations pertaining to the operation of short-term rental housing. Airbnb comes to mind, things of that nature. I think we've talked about this before this came up, because somebody wanted to do it, I think. What was the update to the council, or what I guess is the latest on this in terms of what are the regulations? Are these things allowed in the city? Are we making changes to allow for them? What's the latest?
Well, we're looking to make some changes and decrease the regulation, because right now they can only be done in a certain properties with certain zoning.
Mixed use.
And mixed use. And so, as you travel around the United States or internationally, a lot of people are going to the Airbnb or the VRBO or all the different initials. And so this has become a new way to do this. So you have to look at how can we open that up. And there does obviously have to be, some form of regulation there. The one that's currently there is very expensive to do. And so we're looking to really cut back on that expense. So this initially came to the council, then the council kicked it over to the planning commission, then the planning commission kicked it back to the council, and now the council kicked it back to the planning commission. So, but now with all these bounces of the tennis ball, now we actually have an option, which is, option number 3 that's on there that's got a little bit of regulation, but it also, instead of having just, you can rent these out for up to 29 days and a few other things there. So it'll go to the planning commission. The planning commission then will make a recommendation on what the council will see. The council appetite for it was actually very good. I believe the vote was 9-1. Yeah. And the alderman that voted against it just doesn't like that kind of thing. Of course, a concern there is, hotelers could have a issue there, because hotels, they're required to charge their folks that go to the hotel a room tax. And so is it fair that when other people are doing the same thing that there not be a room tax? So we're going to weigh all those options and find a way to get this with less regulation. And so for people that want to do it, they certainly can. That rent out a room, or, if they've got a room in the back or something, they can rent it out.
Yeah, and I think the public's ready for this. It's been out there for so long. Now, there will be certain people who hear about this and think, wait a minute, I don't want Steve Barg, my next door neighbor, renting out his house for a couple of days, and here comes some rowdies, and there's going to be parties, and cars all over the street in front of my house. I get that thought might come up by somebody, but I've stayed in many of these, my wife and I have, and it's just quiet, and nobody really even knows what you're doing. Fred and so-and-so leave, and Steve and Denise come in, and we stay there rather than stay in a hotel, because you have more room, more space, you have your own area, unlike just some hotel room, and it's a good deal. I think that people have come around to the fact that this actually has merit, broadly speaking, and so I think for us to try and be more accommodating in what we allow with some limitations is a real positive.
Do you guys have anything on that? Okay. Anything else on that one? Okay. Closed session, discuss possible labor agreement with the fire union. Anything on that one?
Yeah, we've been talking for a long time with the fire union about a possible agreement. We're actually in what'll be the second year of the 3-year agreement right off the bat. The last agreement ended on December 31st, 2018. So this one will run from 1/1/19 through the end of 2021. And the reason it's taken so long is not because we've been at odds fighting with each other. It's been some challenges and difficulties getting people together. Our bargaining team is, I think, 6 members, or maybe 7 at times. Theirs is similar, so schedules are really hard to work out. And there were a few issues that really had nothing at all to do with the meat. In fact, one had to do with the wording under the new way the federal law is as far as the fair share contribution toward dues. And that was just two attorneys working things out. So we did sign a 3-year agreement. It'll provide increases of 2.5% as of July 1st of 19, we're going backwards in time now, and then 2.75 for this year and 3% for next year. The fire union had made the case that they thought they were a little bit under their comparables. We agreed to some degree, and that was a negotiated settlement. And as often is the case, both sides might feel that they should have gotten a little bit more. Maybe we think it should have been a little bit less on salary. They might have think more. There are little wordings in different pieces of the agreement that you could argue was more toward one side or the other. But at the end of the day, I think we all walk away now and sign it and feel like it was a fair agreement. Strange thing is that next year we'll already be starting negotiations on a new 3-year agreement that begins on 1/1/21. But we'll deal with that when the time comes up. We, I think, have successfully completed a reasonable process here.
Okay, there was another closed session item, review employment-related claims against the city. Anything you can tell us about that one?
Not really. We've had, I think, 3 comes to mind offhand as far as claims made by employees, different reasons under employment law, and we just really needed to update the council. The council wasn't being asked to do anything. There may come a day somewhere down the road where they're asked to bless some particular resolution, but for right now we really just wanted them to let them know that these claims are out there. They're being discussed. We've got legal counsel involved as well to try and resolve them, and so that if we do have to come back to them, they have an understanding of what the issues are. But there's really nothing that I can say publicly about it.
Can you say anything about what the claims pertain to, or topics or vague issues or anything of that nature? Just to give us some idea? Not really.
Not particularly. They're all under. All 3 of them are under different legal principles or different sections of the law. You think about employment law for a minute. Think about all the things we deal with. We deal with family medical leave. We deal with all sorts of things, and accommodations for employees who need special accommodations. Of course, you have the Disabilities Act. I'm not saying this is any of these, but they're all separate, specific issues, and I really can't comment at this point on any of them.
All right. Anything else? That was a pretty quiet meeting. Otherwise, any other highlights from the meeting that come to mind?
No, it was a pretty quiet meeting. The majority of it was the utility presentation.
I would just add one thing. It was under consent agenda, and that was to authorize renewal of the ambulance billing and collections contract with LifeQuest. You may recall 3 years ago there was some heartburn about the city moving the ambulance billing and collections out of city staff and to a contractor, a company called LifeQuest from the Watoma area. And I guess I would just like to say that all evidence suggests that things are going well. People are getting service. Initially the thought was, oh great, now I can't come down to City Hall, I'm going to call 1-800, and they're not going to know where Marshfield, Wisconsin is. There were some early bumps in the road, but I think LifeQuest staff has been very good at working through them. They've been working with customers on payment plans and getting pretty high marks from those who've dealt with them. So I just want people to know that after all the concerns that were raised, and they're valid questions back in 2017, that I think this is a good contractor and a good situation, and we're happy to continue working with LifeQuest.
So it says renewal. Is that a year by year? Or
No, it would be another 3-year renewal of the 3-year agreement that we already have. When this ends in 2023, I'd probably be asking the council if they would want to look at RFP again, a request for proposals. There's nothing that says you have to bid out audit services or banking services or ambulance billing services some set number of years, every 5 or every 7 or whatever. It's up to what a city wants to do. But it might be prudent the next time the contract comes up to see who else is out there and what they offer. But like I said, we've been very pleased with LifeQuest in terms of efficiency and customer service.